My product backlog is huge. How can I prioritize it? When the product backlog extends indefinitely into the future, it becomes almost impossible to manage. You may end up feeling stuck, feeling disgruntled, feeling dissatisfied, feeling like you don't have control on the work that you're doing because it's just so much work. The backlog is so long, it's very hard to even decide what is gonna be my next priority. A few years ago, I worked with a team. They had a huge backlog and they estimated the backlog at 11 years of work for the team. So just to complete all the work in the backlog would take them 11 years. Strange thing was that every time a new stakeholder had a new request for this team, that request went into the backlog, and on average it took the team 5.5 years to get it done. So imagine now that you are one of those stakeholders, you have a new request, new priority for this team, and you are told, well, it's going to take 5.5 years before we can even start doing their work. That's the problem. When we have a huge backlog, it's very difficult to manage. So what can you do to be both responsive to new requests, but also to work through the old ones and making sure you can cover everything? So let's look at a few different techniques that you can implement to manage a long backlog. The first technique is, of course, to trim the backlog. Like if you were able to take the backlog and reduce it in size, all the problems will be solved. So let's look at a couple of ways to do that. One is to use the Moscow technique. Moscow is not the capital of Russia, but Moscow is the name comes from 4 buckets. One bucket is the must. All the items in this bucket, we must get them done. They are absolutely important. The second bucket is the should. These are important, not like the must. We should do them after we have done the must. Then we have a third bucket called the could. We could do this once we are done with the other 2 buckets. And then the last bucket is the want. We will not do this. Not right now, maybe later in the future. Now you look at your backlog and you may do this collaborative with a few stakeholders, for example. And you may say, let's take all these items that we have in the backlog and let's put them in one of these 4 buckets. At the end of the exercise, everything that is in your must bucket, this represents your priorities. If you feel that too many things go in the must bucket, you can put a threshold. For example, you can say up to 20% of the backlog can go in the must bucket. Everything else must be distributed with the other buckets. And now that you have a must bucket, one idea would be to just take the other 3 buckets and throw them away. Why keep them anyway? It's going to take maybe months or years before you even get started on the other work items, and by the time you get there, things may even change. So why keep them? Again, focus on the must bucket and get them done before you consider other things. Another technique could be to use what is called an epic backlog. Rather than having your backlog being the repository for all the possible ideas, all the possible things you can do in this product, you may want to have an epic backlog. An epic backlog is what is this? Is a product backlog based on epics. So big work items, like big functionalities that we would like to create in the product. Typically in an epic backlog, you have 10, 20 of these, like you have some big major things you want to do. Then you prioritize your epic backlog and you select the top 1 or 2 epics that are the next big important things to focus on. You take this, you break them into stories, and then you put them into the product backlog for your team, your Scrum team to work on. Once you're done with these items, then you select the next 2 epics, for example, break them into user stories and put them in the team backlog and so on. This allows the team to keep the focus on a limited product backlog that only focuses on delivering 1 or 2 big pieces of functionality, and you can deliver one at a time until the whole product is built. Another way to look at the product backlog is to consider the product backlog not like a long list of requirements. Requirements are things that are required. We must do this. So you have all these requirements that pile up in a backlog with 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 requirements. It's going to take forever to get done. Let's flip this, and instead, how can we have a backlog of experiments? Instead of everything is required, why don't we consider what is in the backlog as an experiment? We may do it. We may do our best to build this new feature or functionality in the product. At the end of the sprint, we put that in the hands of our customers and we can say, here is the experiment. Can you please try, play with this, give us feedback? And now that we learn from our customers whether this works or it doesn't, we can decide if we want to continue working on this idea, what to do next, or maybe scratch the whole thing, start over with a different idea. This allows the backlog to become emergent. The backlog emerges from doing the work and from learning from our customers and end users, rather than being all defined upfront with a long list of requirements that will never get all done. Another way to simplify your product backlog is this. Sometimes for some of the work that we do, we tend to do that in what is called waterfall way. So we spend some time doing a big upfront planning. So really thinking about all the possible cases, all the possible use cases that we need to support, all the possible requirements that we need to build into the product. And once all of these big documentation of requirements, a product requirement document, for example, is prepared, we get approval and we are ready to move on. That sometimes is a huge effort and often is a waste of time. Let me share with you a real case study, real life story. This is a company that is building a AI, so artificial intelligence system for self-driving for cars. They have already built a first release of the system that is able to drive a car on some road conditions up to a maximum speed of 40 miles per hour, which is about 64 kilometers an hour. Limited, but working functionality. Now the car automakers are asking for an expansion of this software, this tool, so that it can self-drive autonomously a car on a real road up to 80 miles an hour, 130 kilometers per hour. Now, if you think about it, that is exponentially more complex. Just thinking about all the possible road conditions that this system may encounter while out there. It could be sunny, rainy, snowy. There could be a lot of traffic, could be no traffic. Could be driving on a highway, could be driving on a rural road. It could be a road with a lot of bends, could be a straight road. There could be intersections, no intersection. Could be light stops, could be people crossing the street, could be animal crossing the streets. And the list goes on and on and on. And when you put all of this together, it may be almost an infinite number of possible combinations, infinite number of possible situations that the system needs to be trained on to be able to address and manage properly. It's a huge endeavor, almost feels like a daunting task. How do you even build a system like this? How do you even start creating a list of use cases or a list of requirements? I mean, just doing that big upfront planning with this system is going to drive everybody crazy. And that's exactly where this company was. They were stuck. Too much work. They didn't know how to move forward. So what we did, we helped them instead scratch that plan. Let's build a backlog. And we will start from the first use case, one use case at a time. We will build incrementally and we validate each use case at a time, one at a time, to make sure that we are building the right product that is working and is working for our customers before we decide what to do next. So we started with the smallest, simplest use case. And we simply ask, what is the smallest, simplest use case? For example, a car that is driving on a closed circuit on a sunny day without any other cars, but we want to be able to drive up to 80 miles per hour. Can we make it work? Can we build it? Can this system even work? And once we make it work and we validate that this thing works, then we are going to identify the next use case. And maybe instead of a closed circuit on a sunny day, now becomes a rainy day or a snowy day, and so on. We build one use case at a time until we are able to expand the list of use cases to have enough confidence that this system can be fully autonomous on any road condition. By doing that, we were able to get this team unstuck, and now they were able to do execution on this product. And then one final tip. If you have a huge backlog, one way to create focus and trim the backlog is to really be clear about what is the goal, what is the vision, the product vision for the product that we are building. And for example, what is the goal that we want to achieve in the next, let's say, 6 months? If you establish a product goal like that, it's gonna give us a tremendous clarity and focus on what should be in the product backlog and what should not be. Because if it doesn't allow us to achieve that goal in 6 months, why is it in the product backlog? Let's remove it. And once we have achieved that goal, we can always define the next goal, and we will have a new list of product backlog items that we want to work on, one goal at a time. This all starts by being very clear about what is the product vision, what are the outcomes that you want to deliver to our customers, what is the product goal that you want to achieve. So really it comes down to the product owner being able to do discovery activities and stakeholder alignment to decide where to focus on and what to deprioritize.